Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Over the last few months, we've been really trying to provide some value to our audience out there and give them some idea on all the different stages of divorce, whether that be with the lawyers, looking after children, financial, whatever the case may be. And over this next coming few weeks, we want to talk specifically about what happens inside of marriages. And today I'm lucky enough to have the wonderful Anita Bentata with me, who actually specialises in domestic violence. So welcome, Anita. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Tanya. It's lovely to be here today.
I've been lucky enough to know you for probably over the last year and a half. We wrote our books together, didn't we? So that's how we met. And the work that you do in the domestic violence realm is phenomenal. You're getting a really good name out there. You're renowned for the hard work and the slog that you're doing. So I commend you on that.
Thank you. Thank
you. Can you talk to us about your business? And let's start specifically with the name of your business.
Sure. So I named my business Activating Artemis. And the reason I chose that name is because I get fed up with hearing in the news all this awareness information that's around, which on one level is fantastic. But on another level, I find it really concerning because we've got a lot of awareness, but people aren't activated to know how to recognise still in their own community, friendship, family circles, how to notice that there's abuse happening and what to say and do in practical, real terms, because it is complicated and uncomfortable. And so for me, I'm all about activating trauma from abuse, overwhelm from family not wanting to say or do the wrong thing, all stops us from being activated. So my brand name is Activating Artemis. Now, Artemis is a Greek goddess, and I love her because she is the one that is called she unto herself. She is an independent woman that can do what she needs to do, and she's not reliant on someone else to do that. She doesn't ask for permission. She's just out there. She's activated. And her role is to protect women and children who are vulnerable. And so that's what I do. So it just felt a beautiful marriage between Artemis and activation to call my business.
Explain to us what your business actually does. So what are you actually doing out there in society?
Sure. Okay, so I've got 3 areas that I work in society. For survivors themselves, the first area, I run a group in Melbourne called Women Starting Again, and we have over 500 women, and I have events all over Melbourne that are educational, that teach mind-body tools to help dissolve the unresolved trauma, and we also have social events. So we have a lot of fun, and every event is just so warm and supportive, and it's not ever heavy at all. It's just blown me away since we've been running, getting closer to 2 years now. So that's Women Starting Again. I also, for survivors, I do one-on-one work as well as a psychotherapist. Then the other work that I do is I run talks for the general public, for the community, for private groups, for businesses, and for professionals. And I do talks and workshops to help people get activated, because there's still such a stereotype and so much misunderstanding, and people don't know how to navigate what to do. So very often what happens is people ring me because they know someone who is in a toxic or abusive relationship and they don't know what to do about it. And so I also have another group in Melbourne called Women Supporting Women, and that's where I educate about abuse, so that anyone that wants to prevention for themselves or their daughter or their son or for their friend. If they want to come and get educated and learn that stuff, we do that in the group. And so that's the work that I do with survivors and anyone in the community, is education in groups, in talks, and through my books. The other thing that I do is I do go nationally. I do go around Australia and do talks and workshops as well for survivors and the general community as well. But I also have this beautiful program that has been developing out of the immediate needs of women. And that's what I call the Big Hearted Women program. And it's either, it starts off as an online 10-week program where we go through, it's so comprehensive. It's like, for me, what I've put together is the manual of what we all needed to learn to help us going out into the world about the other side of relationships that doesn't get talked about stress, about how to negotiate things when we're in tricky situations. And so that's my, I think, kind of like that's the manual for going out into the world. And so that's 10 weeks and online, live with me. And if women can do that for themselves or just for prevention, for being a survivor and still not understanding what's going on, or if they want to become a support sister and be a volunteer in their community and support a woman who's escaped, who's left and is feeling isolated or doesn't want to, feels like she's burdening her family, then she can be supported by me and through the program and learn through the 10 weeks. And then we go away for a retreat weekend together to put some other things into place to resource them. And so they can use all of that information for themselves or to support those in their community or who they volunteer with.
Yeah, that's, I mean, as I said, like, it floors me every time I talk to you and the work that you're doing. I think it's amazing. Can we get back to the start? Let's say I'm a young girl or young guy and I'm about to meet the love of my life. Are there some keys that we should be looking out for in a relationship to tell us that maybe this person isn't the right person for us, or maybe they've got some problems that we're going to end up, you know, being involved in? Is there something that you could, if you could tell your younger self, you know, is there something that you would be saying?
Yeah, it's a really important question, and there's so many layers to it. We could just talk about that for, you know, a really good while. And the reason why I say that is because I'll give you a list of some things off the top of my head that are important red flags or warning signs. But the thing, what happens with whatever we know consciously, is that if there's a conflict in our system, what we can think of logically and consciously can get hijacked by unconscious conflictual beliefs and feelings. And so it's important to know those red flags and those warning signs. But I like to work on a deeper layer so that we don't get hijacked. So some practical warning signs is someone that gets jealous, of course, someone that wants to rush things fast, someone that appears too good to be true, that and that they're revolving everything about you.
Oh, really? That's an issue, is it? If they're sort of making everything about you, that's a warning sign.
Yeah, it can be. It can be, because it could be that they're using this time to just want to learn everything about you and then present it back as if, but I'm the same too. I'm the same too.
Oh, see, and then
so
women,
they feed off it.
Yeah, well, what women would think if they were in that relationship would be thinking, oh my God, this is a man of my dreams. He's giving me everything I could ever want in a relationship. But little does she know, she's to some extent being sort of molded, isn't she? Or being prepared for something else.
Yeah, and he's using, and I'm talking generally here because it's more often it is a male, but it can be both a female or male. And so if I just say, like, he can use that time to get as much information to manipulate and use that in a way that presents him as being so amazing. So, like, there's lots of things that we can get tricked by, because people that use abuse are very charming. They are very convincing. And so I don't like to just give practical, conscious warning signs, because for me, the biggest gap that we've got is that as a humanity, we've lost our connection to our body and the unconscious, and listening and trusting that.
So trusting our inner self when so you're saying that we can sort of sense that something's not right, but we just ignore it and think, oh, we're just being silly.
Yeah. And that, to me, is more important, that we pay attention to that aspect of ourselves than a list of warning signs. Because, since I've been doing this work, every time I go and speak to large groups of people and I ask them to put up their hand if they had early warning signs, I guarantee every single one always puts up their hands. And that's me included, because I'm a survivor myself. And so we've got this ability to be able to listen to our instinct. And I understand, as a trauma psychotherapist, why we get disconnected from that. But we can do something about that. And the more we talk about that, the better we're going to be.
Oh, I 100% agree. If you could get that message out to the women or the men who are in relationships at the moment, and get to that point where there's some sort of educational or even data to show that at a certain time frame, this might be what's happening. These are the signs you need to be looking for, and this is your chance to get out and change it if you want to. Look, it leaves me speechless. I hate to think of anyone being in any sort of danger or anything like that. It's appalling. But and for me, I'm lucky enough that that's never happened to me. But my heart goes out to anyone that's in that position. Can we talk about the word narcissist? I hear it so often. Everyone that if I'm dealing with in the divorce space, if I'm dealing with a new client or whatever, they talk about the word narcissist. Can you firstly explain what that word means and what are the characteristics of that sort of person?
Okay. Now, look, I know there are women out there that are far more skilled than me to be able to define about what a narcissist is, because when I escaped abuse, that term was not around, and there wasn't social media back then. So it's, someone that is, if I think of it, I'm not so inclined to talk about the labels about what a person is, for exactly the same reason as what I was saying about the warning signs. I think women can become, after you leave abuse, you get so hungry to understand what's going on, because it doesn't make sense at all, and it's not based on reality. So there's no way to make meaning out of it. And so I think women get very hungry to read and read and read to try and understand him. The problem I have with talking a lot about narcissists is we're doing another version of our energy revolving all around trying to understand him. And so, for me, when I think about a narcissist, it's someone that is, well, it comes as a psychotherapist from a narcissistic wound where aspects of themselves hasn't been seen. The thing for me is that they tend to deny everything about your own identity and want you to fulfill some distorted delusion of how they want you to be.
So they try and mold you.
Yeah. And that can happen overtly and covertly, very discreetly. They can appear very charming and helpless even. There's many different versions of a narcissist. But again, I don't tend to, that's not my area, and there's many people that people can go if they want to learn about that. My area is about understanding what happens in your own system, because we have default patterns on family levels, on biological levels, on social, cultural, religious levels, that we are involuntarily getting hooked into. And I'm more interested in helping people to gather the power within themselves rather than try and understand someone else. Because the thing that I believe is, it can be very overwhelming and daunting to think about, who do I trust out in the world? And so rather than trying to work out who do I trust out there, to be able to go, I can trust my own body and my own ability to listen to myself and not dismiss the little. Then when I trust me, I can navigate who I trust and who I don't. And I can do it at the pace that's right for me, so that I have time to assess if they're walking the talk, if there's too much control or too many manufactured environments, or a whole lot of things. And that's where I want people to be spending more attention and energy.
So are you saying then that there's things that have happened throughout our life that make us pick the person that we've chosen? Is that some of what you're saying?
It's some of what I'm saying. Some people have come from abusive backgrounds that has never been identified as abuse, because as a society we still do not understand beyond the very obvious. And so everybody's got this picture of this, what abuse looks like. And then when something's happening in their own home, they just see it as a bad argument and not what should be happening, which is what I thought when I was going through abuse. I never knew it was abuse till the very end. All I thought it was, this is bad, I don't like it. But there was no connect that actually this is criminal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so some people grow up and they've got already these blinkers to name and what is really going on. And often that's happened on so many levels. It doesn't have to have been really dramatic for our system to learn to disconnect from the knowing of our own reality. It's like if we've had parents that have just said to us, don't you dare be angry at me, or denied the reality of the feeling of what's going on, then we can grow up not being able to be with our own responses and trusting what we feel is real. So there's those unconscious patterns that can develop, the patterns from growing up with abuse and having involuntary coping mechanisms and denial. And the other thing that can happen that I tend to call the Little Red Riding Hood effect is that as girls we're often taught to be like Little Red Riding Hood, where we're taught to be kind and nice and caring and look after others, and like Little Red Riding Hood, do jobs that are too big for us to do, like to go through the woods to visit and give a grandmother some food as a little girl. It's a big task to do.
That's
and
scary.
I believe, yeah, why wasn't the mother doing that?
That's right.
And so I think the mother, in sending her daughter out into the woods, is an indication of the generational wounds of women having to be passive. And so Little Red Riding Hood goes out into the woods, and she's not told that there's wolves out there, and she's not told that the wolves learn different things to what she's learned or engage differently. And so when she meets the wolf, what does she get out of her basket when there's conflict? More compassion, more kindness, more forgiving, more understanding. But wolves, use that to their advantage. They don't take it in the respectfully. So I think often women are getting caught in toxic and abusive relationships, not because they've had a bad upbringing as such, but because we're not taught to connect to our body and our instinct and trust ourselves, and we're encouraged to be caretakers and fill the gaps for other people.
Please.
And to be emotional caretakers, and if there's something wrong, that's okay, we'll make it better, like Little Red Riding. And I think we can be really caring and compassionate without being overly responsible.
So if that's the case now, say I'm in a domestic violence relationship and I know things aren't right, and I don't know what to do. I don't want to tell my friends because I don't want people to, because I'm assuming this is what would happen. They don't want people to think badly of their partner. So they're trying to protect the family identity. So they're trying to keep it all into themselves. But it'll get to a stage where obviously they've got to tell someone. What do they do? Do they tell a family member? Do they tell a girlfriend? Do they contact someone like you? What is the first thing? I mean, obviously they know themselves that this isn't right, but now they've just got to work through it stage by stage. So what are the steps?
Sure. The statistics show that women will contact family and friends more than they'll contact a DV organisation. So that's why I like to do my programs too, to educate so family and friends can have that information to protect and prevent for themselves, but also so they can be there for those that they really love. So, but it's not to put a burden on family and friends. So it's really individual. If someone is aware that what they're living with is in a toxic, abusive way, then there's lots of opportunities, and it's up to what they feel inclined to do. There's the 1-800-RESPECT line. There's safe steps. There's absolutely contacting me for my groups or my one-on-one work. They, I guess, would be the three things that I would say the first port of call, depending on the context next of their situation. Absolutely, that you can't do it on your own.
And so especially, I suppose, if you've got a girlfriend that's in this position that you know is dealing with this but just doesn't have the strength to take the next steps, it's really important then for that girlfriend to maybe, as you said, and that's what's so good about your programs and your meetups, that girlfriend can actually go and talk to someone, get some tools, and then, be saying that to her friend in whether having a coffee down the shop or whatever they're doing, and trying to empower her and give her strength to know that she's not by herself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for me, in my personal story, none of my family said anything to me in the nearly 6 years I was living with him. And after I escaped, one of my sisters said to me that she used to cry when she'd leave after visiting me, but nothing had ever happened. And it was only after, over 20 years, when I wrote my book, The Wolf in a Suit, that my other sister said that my sisters would talk to each other. And that was actually more painful for me than all of the excruciating abuses that I experienced in the relationship. And so that's why I created all my talks and my group work programs and my group support groups. So because when a woman is living with that, her brain shuts down. She's in a trauma response, and it's very hard to process. And so I think, well, those around them that love them, it's up to them, I think, to really bridge a step to those who are in a vulnerable, risky situation. And that's why I want to support those people, because it is tricky too, because what they're going to come across is, if they try to have a conversation, the person they're talking to is in one sense kind of brainwashed. And because people still aren't getting adequate information, even though we've got so much awareness going on, people don't know how to have that conversation. And so that's why I was even just the other week talking to a man who I know who was having a conversation with someone, and they disclosed about horrific abuse, and he knew about the work that I do, and it was only in that he really got, oh, I didn't know what to say to her. He got overwhelmed and confused, and he couldn't have the conversation he wanted to have. So I talked him through on the phone what he could say to help her, to get her to be able to get to some help. And since then, she's come for a session with me, and she's feeling a lot better, because I can straight away give her tools, not information, actually tools to process the trauma.
And because you've been there, you can relate to what she's going through. So, you know, there's already a bridge there, isn't there? Because you're able to tell her, I've been in the same situation, but look at me now, I've survived, and this is now what I do.
Yeah. I feel really, I've got goosebumps when you're saying that, because I feel, though I'd never wish that suffering on me and my daughters, there's a blessing now that I can know something from the inside, from in my skin, what it's like. And that gives you more information than words can describe. Yeah, and exactly. So combined with studying about trauma and understanding about the unconscious and the body, the involuntary process, and our defense system that gets activated, it gives me such a holistic way of looking beyond the way we currently do now, for actually practical solutions of things that we can do now, even when the society is still not in an optimal place. And I guess the thing why I encourage people to contact me to come to my talks and my groups is not because it's my business. It's because I hear time and time again from women that even when they contact the DV organisations, what they're hearing and what they're getting is re-traumatizing, and a lot of therapists still don't have adequate training in trauma and abuse. And
well, that's ultimately, well, that's ultimately why, you know, if someone comes that's had abuse for me, obviously, you know, you're the person to go to, you're the subject matter expert, you're the person that's going to get them through that awful stage, the best possible outcome, and, you know, just know that they've got a group of people that they can rely on and help. And that alone just takes a level of pressure off someone, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a wonderful thing to, you know, to not be alone and to be with a group of women, and you don't even have to say anything because you all know why group. And so it's like, well, these women all are intelligent, capable, good-hearted women. There's nothing wrong with me. There's something broken in our society. But we also don't have the tools on how to be with trauma, and that's what I teach the women. Yeah,
well, it's very interesting, because we even see in what we do in the Divorce Angel business is you'll be sitting there and you'll actually be having a conversation with a client and getting the fact find and understanding this, you know, their circumstances and whatever. And it's so regular that you sit there and you'll look at someone and you'll say, do you realise what's happening to you is actually a form of financial abuse? So it doesn't just happen, you know, like obviously what's happening with what your expertise is, but in my area as well, you know, there's so many parts where women aren't given money. You know, they might be given $200 a week or a month, and that's all they can have. And, you know, and that also is a form of abuse. So it's happening in all different areas.
Absolutely. Since I wrote my book, I've found more and more types of abuse. And in my last count, I think there's 19 types of abuse. Oh. And along with financial abuse, there's STD, sexually transmitted debt, which very often happens where partners aren't told what they're really signing, and then they can get caught in very tricky situations that have a long-term effect.
Well, that's ultimately, you know, we do a lot of work in that area and try and prevent a lot of that stuff happening. So, you know, that's why we work so closely with the lawyers, the financial advisors and the accountants to make sure that we've done a complete deep dive into any prehistory and make sure that no one signed a document or there's trust accounts or anything like that, because it's all the ramifications for things that you might have signed that you didn't actually know what you were signing that we need to get you out of. So
yes, yeah, and the number of stories that I hear of women that discover how he has secretly been putting money in other accounts offshore and in Australia, and things weren't as it appeared to them, and they only found out in the separation. It's really disturbing.
yeah, well, I actually yesterday just thought to myself, my next blog I'm going to write is about, I don't know about you, but my mum always said to have a rainy day fund. And I'm thinking about people need to have a rainy day file, and that file needs to have all of the stuff in it. So if something happens tomorrow, you can pull it all out and you've got all that information. So that will be my next thing I'll be talking about.
Wow. Yeah, sounds very good.
So I just wanted to ask a few more questions, but so we're in the relationship, we want to get out. When we've made the decision to leave, and is there something that we should be doing? So I know we've obviously got IVOs and those sorts of things with the police, but if I was for a minute to put myself in someone's shoes like that, I'd be thinking that they'd be absolutely petrified. They'd be uncertain whether they choose to leave when their partner's not at home or away at work or you know, who knows. They've got to have their bags. They've got to have everything ready. Is that what you're actually helping people to do? Or is it best to have a conversation with this person and say, I'm leaving? You know, what is your advice?
My advice isn't to say I'm leaving, because if you're leaving because of some level of abuse, some level of control that's inhibiting your freedom and sense of well-being, then it puts you at risk. Very often we're told to be upfront and direct and honest, and that's again what I'm talking about in the Little Red Riding Hood effect, that we think if we do the right thing, then the other person's going to reciprocate, or if we're assertive, then they'll be assertive. But I remember when I was going through my therapy after I escaped and had this light bulb moment that, oh my God, being assertive isn't the magic pill. It doesn't fix things when you're talking to someone who's been controlling and abusive. So I don't recommend talking. There's been enough chances normally, but too many. Yeah, women tend to tolerate too much. And so I recommend leaving without explaining, without telling, and getting that paperwork together of those essential things, like your passport, your bank papers, you know, all of those important papers that you need, the special things like, you know, like photos and things. Like
so you've got to prepare for the escapes, pretty much.
Well, some people have time to prepare and some people don't. It depends on the level of what's going on at the time. Also, because we know statistically, if you do tell someone, we know that leaving is one of the most dangerous times. Yeah. So I would be telling, if you can get those papers and things, get them, but don't from my perspective, I wouldn't be putting anything above my own or my children's well-being.
Yeah, exactly.
And so don't feel like you've got to have all the ducks in the row before you can leave. It's like, if you need to leave, just leave, because your well-being is more important than anything else. The rest can get worked out. So it really depends on the situation, and this is why it's good to have someone to talk to you through it, so you don't have to work it out on your own, because it's overwhelming and scary. And
so I was going to say, the thing is, with if you were going to leave and you've decided that you're going to go, and this is probably another issue that you've got in the back of your head, you know, if you go to your parents' house or you go to a relation's house or you go somewhere else, he's likely to follow. He's likely to get angry, or she. and put their life at risk as well. Is that some other,
Yeah.
might be
Well, it is. It can feel complicated. I guess if I share what I did, when I realised that I was in abuse and I needed to get out with my children, I then, without telling him, I applied to Centrelink for some money because I had no money. I started looking for a rental property that I could afford on the Centrelink because I had no money from anywhere. And when I found a place, I then booked a removalist. I then did, this is when I told my family that I was in abuse. I asked them if my father and my sister could come to the house and be with me when the removalist comes. And once the removalists come, I was going to go straight to the magistrate's court to apply for an intervention order because I was too terrified to leave and not have that to protect me and my children. So I left when I say escaped rather than left because it wasn't, I'm going to leave now. It was strategic. It was, to do with risking life or death. So I don't like to minimize it because otherwise we can misrepresent what's going on. And so I escaped. I strategically planned it when he was at work and in a business appointment that I knew he definitely would be keeping. So there was no way that he'd pop home because he kept a strong eye on me. So, yeah, that was when I escaped. And so I went straight to the magistrate's court on that day. And so I left with an interim order. So I knew that me and my girls were going to be at least alerted to the police. And so in the interim order, it also has that he can't go anywhere where I'm known to frequent. So, that it would then include, family or, any of those other places that.
So that sort of rule has now changed though, hasn't it, where it comes to IVOs and that, like, not that neither of us are obviously lawyers, but we've both been dealing with this long enough to know what the rule is. So I think at the moment, if you go and do that today, can you still turn up to the magistrate's court and get an IVO? Because from what I understand, if you call the police, you get an immediate IVO. If you go to a police station or whatever, you then have to get a court date and turn up, and it can take 3 weeks for the IVO, if not longer, to then be actually valid. So, that's something that you've really got to find out about and make sure that you've got you understand the ramifications of your actions and know how you're going to be protected with that IVO.
Absolutely. Yes, you do have to ring the registrar and book. So again, if someone had the time to look for a place to move, otherwise the other option is just going to a refuge. But if people had the time to, like I did, to set up an account and look for private rental, then you could also book the first appointment. The thing with going to the police for an IVO is I really recommend when you go to the police, go to a 24-hour station, because every 24-hour station has a family violence unit there, because unfortunately all of the police are still not adequate in their response when there's domestic violence, and very often they don't understand when it's non-physical but you still are feeling the threat. And because we know violence can happen when you leave, even when there hasn't been any physical, when it's been all non-physical, it still is a dangerous time. But not all police respect or get that. And so I would really recommend going to one of those 24-hour stations and contacting the family violence unit there so that you can get better help to get what you need. And that's what I often end up helping women with, coaching them how to be with the police through them getting their IVO, because sometimes the police can be, unfortunately, dismissive and blaming and judgmental, and not acting quickly or seriously with what's going on. So absolutely, you can go to the police and get them to instigate it. What would be really good is to be able to write down all of the incidents, and if you've got the dates and the details in a factual...
Photographs?
Yeah, photographs, any evidence.
Yeah.
If anybody's witnessed things, so that the more you can tell the police on a concrete, specific level, black and white, then the better off they're going to be able to help you.
And so if you are physically harmed, is it best to go to your doctor or to an emergency room so it is actually documented by a professional?
Absolutely, to have it documented by a professional is going to be helpful. I wouldn't know whether it would be better to go to your own doctor or the emergency room. I
suppose if it came to some sort of court proceeding, just as long as someone had, some sort of, record of what had happened, the injuries that you had and all the rest of it would be, would be beneficial.
What I would actually say is, if you actually talk to the in the family violence unit, because depending on what has happened, they also do investigations.
Okay,
so
great.
So and examinations. So they could be someone to talk to first.
Yeah. Okay. But so we've now left, and we're worried about obviously our safety and all the rest of it. What sort of things do we put in place to try and protect ourselves once we've gone?
Other than an intervention order?
Yeah.
Because I guess that's, I am, even though they're not perfect, I am a believer in it, because I think if we don't show that this is unacceptable, and if we don't feedback, then how can things change, and how can there be a recognition of how severe things are? So other than the intervention order and speaking to the school, if you've got children, letting them know, letting the significant people that you're close to know, so that they can make sure they're not going to get manipulated and by different things that could unfold. There's things like, even there's the eSafety. It's a government website, and there's lots for women, and because technological abuse is in about 98% of all abuse now.
Okay.
So there's lots of videos on that government website where you can learn and make sure that your phone and all of your things, because partners and ex-partners are tracking, still infiltrating, and doing a lot of really nasty things. So
what was that website again?
I can't remember. It's eSafety for women. It's a government website. If you can't find it, I'll send you a link for it so you can.
Yeah. With this.
But they've got a lot of very good little video clips to make sure that your phone isn't being used as a tracking device. A whole lot of things. Excuse me. There's women that have been bugged, and like, even say, put something on the child's backpack, their school backpack, and it just looks like a little key ring or something, and it's recording and their voices, and also as a GPS locating where they are. So these things are happening a lot.
Yeah, so I actually, we do that with our clients as well. Straight away we say, because of cloud-based iTunes and stuff like that, someone just has to log on and they can see all of your accounts. You need to make sure that you get a new iTunes account, start a new Gmail account if you need to. The children, we've had a client whose father actually was following on Find My Phone, with the child sitting next to the mother, knowing everywhere the mother was at any given time, because they were following the Find My Phone on the child's phone. So I think that's a great website. I'll put that up with this. That's wonderful.
The other good resource is recently I went to the Wheeler Centre in the city of Melbourne, and they had a talk to do with financial abuse, and that was fantastic. And I do know that they record all their talks.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to go there and look at the October event about financial abuse, it's a really good talk. And it's, very...
and that's Wheeler, WHEELER?
Yep. The Wheeler Centre.
The Wheeler Centre. Okay, I'll look that up too. Okay. Well, look, this has been amazing, and I know your story personally. I know we haven't got into that because, we haven't had the time, but what you've been through and how you've turned your life around and made it your purpose is, I don't know, it's awe-inspiring. I think you're just beautiful. I love you to pieces. I think you're doing amazing work, and you're just a beautiful human being. I wish you nothing but happiness and love.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I just feel so blessed to know you, and I love the work that you're doing for women too. It's just so beautiful that they've got that support, because it's such a scary time to put yourself first and look after yourself, and we need women helping us be there for each other. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what we're all here to do, to help each other. It's a circle of life, and that's why we call us our army of angels. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. Where can people find you if they need to?
Sure. They can contact me by email if they want, Anita, ANITA, at AnitaBentata.com. So BENTA.
Their name for us,
BENTATA.com. They can find me on Facebook at The Wolf in a Suit, and I can...
That's Anita's wonderful book.
Yep, The Wolf in a Suit, and there's my name as well, Anita Bentata. So they can find me on Facebook there. They're probably, or Instagram under my name, Anita Bentata, or email me, as I said. They're probably the easiest. My website will be up in a couple of weeks. I've had a lot of dramas with my website, so I'm looking forward to that coming up soon. And so that's going to give all the information about everything that I do, which will be really exciting. If I can just say, because I've got an event coming up on the 11th of November in Melbourne, in South Yarra. It's a fully catered one-day event, and it's for everybody at any because everything that we explore is relevant in different ways, because I work from the feminine principle, and what I get fed up about in the way people talk about domestic violence is we're really, as a society, engaging with domestic violence from what I call the regressive masculine principle, because it's disconnected from the feminine. And so it's just valuing the thinking and proof. And when domestic violence it's behind closed doors, it is tricky, it's not all visible. Just relying on that masculine principle is very difficult to negotiate and make best decisions as a professional or a survivor or a friend. And so we really need, as I was talking earlier, to connect to our body and the unconscious. And so this event is for anyone that wants to experience the feminine and the masculine principle working together, because when they work together, we can have emotional muscle. But the beautiful thing inside this event is we are also engaging with 8 core areas to do with relationships and domestic violence that doesn't get talked about. And we've got 8 tables with the 8 topics. Instead of being a passive audience listening to the experts up on the stage, everybody is sitting and talking with each other in their group, and you can move to as many or as little tables as you want, wherever your interest lies, and explore. And there's resources, because each table is going to be with a female survivor or a specialist expert to support the conversations. So it's going to be a really stimulating and a lot of new information. There's nothing of what the stereotypical information of what people get. This is practical, hands-on information that will prevent or protect people and help make things simpler and clearer. I've got a special on, if I can just say, for this event. We've got, for Joanne from Interact Support, a fantastic law firm in Melbourne, are offering 10 one-hour consultations for free for women that book, or men if they wanted, that book to attend our event. Also, I decided to kind of match their beautiful, generous offer and offer 10 one-hour sessions with myself about a checklist to what's going on in your relationship.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of value there, isn't there?
Oh, there's so much value. There's even more but yeah, I'm just aware of time. But yeah, there's a lot. So if you want to find out about the event, you can go to the Wolf in a Suit or email me. It's the 11th of November. I'll
put it up on my Facebook page anyway, so that if anyone wants to go, that it'll be there. So yeah.
All right.
That's great. Thank you so much once again, and for your help and inspiration. And let's hope that if someone is watching this that is going through this awful time in their life, that hopefully we've provided some value for them. You really need to get some sort of support, and Anita could be that person for you. Our heart goes out to you. We're sending you nothing but love and kisses, and hoping that you have enough strength to get through whatever it is that you're dealing with. So, Anita, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tanya Summit, and the Divorce Angel, and I have an army of angels in every area that you might need, and we try and make your divorce as easy as possible, because by having Anita here, it reminds me why I started this business, and that was primarily because the family court only has enough money for a certain amount of things, and the family court should be used for people that are going through this, not for people that are fighting over nuts and bolts of a cabinet because they can't get along. You know, it's appalling. So don't use the court's time and resources on something just because you're angry. Let the proper people, the people that should be there, the children, the women, the husbands that are in these sorts of environments, let them use those resources, because that's what it's there to do. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anita, and we'll see you all next week.
See you.
Bye.